Good day everyone, I am Roslinda, a B.Ed 4th year student. I am your pre-service teacher for today. In this video, we will discuss the lesson 3, which is the Biodiversity and Healthy Society. Our discussion will be divided into 4 parts. First will be our activity. Second will be the discussion of our topic, which is about the biodiversity and healthy society. Third will be our application part. And the last one will be our assessment. Now, before we start our discussion, we have here our learning objectives, what we expect to do at the end of the lesson. Students are expected to be able to, first, identify what biodiversity is. Second, explain the impact of biodiversity on human population growth. And third, apply on how we can protect our environment by knowing the signs of contamination. So let us start in our activity. I prepared a video and I'm going to share it with you as your preference for our activity. Before I present it, I'm going to divide the class into 3 groups. After the video is shown, you are to give 5 importance of biodiversity in our lives. And you are to write it in a bulleted form. From the group, you are to choose one member to share the gathered ideas. Now let us play the video.
Our planet is incredibly beautiful, isn't it? Not that it's any surprise with billions of species roaming the Earth, from microbes to baobab trees, all the way up to blue whales. And it's all interconnected, like dragonflies with 28,000 lenses per eye, or peacocks with microscopic crystals tinting their feathers. And even the insects they eat and every other part of their habitats too. So what if all that variety disappeared? It wouldn't be so great, and it might not be that far off. Extinctions are rising faster than ever before. The difference? Us, humans. Since we came along, species have been dropping out 100 times faster than the natural rate. And get this, biodiversity, that's the assortment of life on Earth, is super important for maintaining the health of our environment, not to mention our food supply and our economy, like the bees that pollinate our crops, or the forests that clean the air and filter our water. Penicillin? You can thank a fungus for that. And biodiversity deserves some credit for all the likes your vacation photos have been racking up. Pretty much everything is balancing on, well, everything else. Like mangroves, they're a birthing ground for parrotfish, and those little guys grow up to clean algae off coral reefs. Without them, reefs would suffocate, and fish would stop gathering. And then sharks and dolphins, even fishermen, would have to find other places to hunt. Plus, mangroves and reefs also protect us from big storms like hurricanes and tsunamis. And that's just one habitat. Each one of those supports the greater global ecosystem. Remove just one piece of that puzzle and the entire thing becomes vulnerable. Pull too many pieces, it could all crumble. That's what biodiversity really means. But it's not too late. We can slow the extinctions and save the planet. If we protect our wild ecosystems and change our habits to help restore the lands we've already degraded, which is no small task, it means changing how we approach infrastructure, the ways we farm, and even the behaviors our economies reward around the world. No biggie though. We've landed robots on Mars. We got this. If we can agree to prioritize it. Because it's going to take bold public leadership and private investment. But this is a goal we can all get behind, right? Because we're a part of this biodiversity thing too. And preserving all that means preserving ourselves.
The biodiversity being defined by different researchers. According to SCBC of 2010, it defined the variability among the living organisms from all sources, including the terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystem, and the ecological complexes of which they are part. This includes the diversity of the species, between species, and of ecosystem. As being defined by Villago Global of 2019, it is the source of essential goods and ecological services that constitutes the source of life for all, and it has direct consumption value in food, agriculture, medicine, and industry. Now let us discuss what is biodiversity. Bio means life, and diversity means the variety. Biodiversity is the amazing variety of life on Earth. It includes all organisms, plants, animals, and us. We are a part of this rich welfare of life. Biodiversity is the source of our fuel, medicine, and shelter. Every breath we take, every drop we drink, and every bite we eat, it all comes from the nature. Now let's talk about the impact of biodiversity on human life. The human species is just one of Earth's 1.9 million of living life forms. It has arisen by the same mechanism on other species. It has the same physical requirement as the other similar species. Humans are dependent for its survival on the successful interactions with Earth's plant and animal species. Humans are also unlike other species because of their niche, which means their role in the community. It's how they interact with other organisms that will play their roles. Human technologies have had significant impacts on the natural world by producing materials that pollute the air, water, and the land, which means humans' activities are somehow destructing the natural resources. We humans destroy what was given from us and we do not preserve it. We humans are using our natural resources, but we are somehow abusing a part from it. We see the importance, but at the same time, we do consume all from it. Every species in this nature has a role and they need to play their part. We need to understand that each species or organisms work to have a healthy biodiversity. Now, there is a need for an education and awareness for the humans or people to know or to save our environment. From the government, industries, and the general public must come together with the long-range impact of human activity that destroys the very fabric of biological life on Earth. The impact of biodiversity on human life is that it supports the lives of everyone. It provides our necessity and giving us occupation for us to live every day. In order for us to be healthy, we should give back to our nature and protect our surroundings. At this point, let us tackle the threats of the biodiversity or how humans are negatively impacting our biodiversity. First is the human population growth. As we all know, human population growth is the rapid increase of number of people in the world. The increase of human population and technology that supports the growth put extreme pressures on the natural world, which threatens the survival of natural species and habitats. These threats affect in a way that people need to have a shelter or a home, and so are flattening the trees and other surroundings so that they will build their home. Humans do have the need for the food to eat. This growth affects the health of our biodiversity. It's because they are more producing their own capabilities, which is not considering the species that living in there. In many less developed areas of the world, the human population have grown faster than the food supply, which means it causes hunger for some people who do not have enough food for them to eat. The demand is higher than the supply it produces. It results to poverty and hunger of the world. These areas had led to resurgences of diseases that have been all eradicated in the world. which means people are in need of help for them to survive and for them to have food. Apparently, the human species have rapidly approaching a point where it will be unable to sustain the continued growth, which means there will be a point in our life that we didn't have enough food to eat, and so the supply will not support every lives in the world. Another threat would be the pollution and destruction of our environment. Here we're talking about the chemicals or toxins that is spreading in our nature. This is done by the technical and industrial processes that company needs to do. Such toxic chemicals have contributed to our global environment pollution. Here the pollutants are some acidic, ions, and pesticides. We all know that these pesticides are harmful, yet it was used in the whole world for some people who wants protection for their plants, and so the insects will not eat their products. We all know that when these products or such chemicals are being distributed to our surroundings, it will contaminate the water, air, and the soil at the same time. We know that people are aware of that, but at some point, these chemicals help some farmers or people who need such product for their living. Though it is difficult to stop, but we could make a help for that. We can reduce the use of pesticides and replacing it with some organic products like fertilizers, having a net that will protect our plants from the insects. These chemicals are destructing our environment. We also humans are being destructed by it. We do inhale the air, we do drink the waters, and we do planted some vegetables and fruits from our soils. We contributed to this harmful to our environment, and at the same time, we consume the harm effects. We are aware of it because we too are exposed from these products. The industrial byproducts such as dioxin pose similar dangers to many species, including humans. Are combining of acidic ions with atmospheric water has resulted in an acid precipitation, or which we call the acid rain. This acid rain acidified the lakes and other water products, and at the same time disrupted our natural ecosystem. Destruction of habitats. We all know that these issues are very rampant today. Humans have more concern with the technology and use it for everyday lives. With this technology, it used to remove the trees and other plant life from wide areas of their natural habitat. This cutting of trees and other plants was purpose for building industries such as roadways, residential, industrial zones, and commercial development for the people to be catered by it. Humans have drained, filed, and redirected wetlands, ponds, and streams for the same purpose of building industrial infrastructure. This destruction of habitat has a great effect with the loss of our biodiversity. We all know that animals and plants have contributed a big part for our ecosystem. And with this destruction, we don't know if our ecosystem as of today is still on a balance. Some of human activities displace these plants and animals to other place in order to build something in there. Humans need food, but yet building some agricultural lands has a great effect of our biodiversity. Forests are flattened and turned into a field, whereas those forests have contributed a big part for our ecosystem. The destruction of habitats makes me feel sad because the forests are flattened, and so crops from these trees will no longer prevent the floods or the erosion of the soils. It causes to landslide and floods, which is being prevented if this forestry are being protected or preserved. Here, in the destruction of habitats, we use the overcropping which means the failure to allow soil to recover nutrients and organic matter content between the plants. Also, the overgrazing is the practice of allowing large numbers of domestic animals to graze in an area which is too small for them to be supported. Humans have brought to this destruction of habitats. Well, for some animals who are being transferred to places which is not enough for them to support their food and other things they need. Next is the exploitation of animals and plants, which means getting or removing the animal or plants from their home. Animals are being far from their habitat because they are stayed in the zoo or other activities which humans are using them. Plants at the same stage are being transferred to other places which they are not catered by their ecosystem. This exploitation of animals and plants have been enabled by modern transportation, communication, and economic technologies. The reason of this exploitation of animals and plants are due some for the research, which means researchers use them to do for a study or being experimented for some reasons. Some animals are killed for their horns, elephant for their tusks, and tiger being tested by some companies for the effectivity of their products. This exploitation of animals and plants has disrupted the life of our ecosystem. We do lack some supporting system that will help nurture or help revive our nature. There are a lot of exotic animals and plants here on Earth, and with this activity of exploitation has caused for the danger of extinction. That situation is very crucial because every species or organisms in this ecosystem have contributed each part of them. This removal has negatively impacted the effects of the ecosystem, which means the removal of plants and animals and their ecosystem has loosened balance of our variety of life. This activity has resulted in the destruction of the entire mountain habitats. This exploitation of animals and plants are somehow illegal activities of the humans. They do it somehow for money, since the exotic plants and animals are very expensive for them to sell. The harvesting of these hardwoods is used for the industries, and so that it loses the biodiversity of that certain ecosystem. Another situation that threatens the biodiversity is the science of environmental contamination, which means there are no balance in our ecosystem, which is maybe because of the loss of the plants, animals, and other species. This environmental contamination, which caused by the chemicals, the byproducts, and the other contaminants due to the unhealthy surroundings. For example, the reproductive cycle disruption in birds as a result of high concentrations of DDT and other pesticides. The birds get their food from the plants in our surroundings, and so it harms them because the plants that they were eaten was having some pesticides. Another example is the death and population declines of birds and fish are linked from the contaminated oil spills. Also, birds are being harmed by these oil spills. In such, there are birds that get their food from the water, or fish that they eat is harmed already. Next is the death and disorientation of marine mammals, possibly due to the coastal pollutant runoff. These examples of mammals are whales and tortoise, which are somehow seen in the coastal areas in the nations. Coastal areas are being polluted. In such case, there are lots of algae and other things that present in that certain area. Like it harms their system as they intake some of these products like plastics, other pesticides, and other harmful things that is present in the coastal area. And the last example is the contamination of water. We all know that water is very important in our lives, very important for animals, and very important for the plants. If this water are being contaminated we humans, animals, and plants may result to our death and being unhealthy in such cases. The contamination of water harms us and other living organisms. We all know that contamination of waters will bring big impact in our ecosystem. It might destroy our lives, destroy our health, destroy the animal's life, and other species or organisms present in our ecosystem as of today. This event of contamination have causes danger for everyone. Recently, the incidence of birth defects and diseases linked to environmental pollution, which is very obvious because this arises among the children who are living in an environmentally contaminated area, which means this scenario or this threat is very harmful for us and for the children and for the coming generations. Living in a contaminated area is very dangerous because at a point you will intake the things or the toxins that is spreading or present in that area. This problem experienced today by children are having childhood asthma, which were obvious in the contaminated community. At that number of points, we all know that the contamination happens anywhere and everywhere. We all know that contaminated area may harm other area or places, such as one person will bring virus to other community wherein they are not yet contaminated. At that point, the community who was not yet contaminated will slowly getting the contaminations from the other places. Another threat is the consumption of energy. Industrialization has brought an increased demand for the use of energy in the whole world, which means peoples or humans are more in need of the energy in our everyday living. Nations have been using this energy for their businesses and the needs for the people from their nations. Another case is that people are more of use of this energy for their everyday consumption, which is needed for them and how they will sustain their lives. The demands of energy have resulted to more use of places like where they will build the solar panels, the windmills, and the fuel cell technologies. Consumption of energy is not that balanced throughout some nations. Some country produces a much more of this energy, and at the same time, there are countries who lacks to receive this energy. We all know that as of today, the sources of energy are coal, the gas, the wind or tidal waves, the nuclear, the solar, and the geothermal. This development of energy, the sources are often valuable for the agricultural land, for life, and for the construction, storage, and the transport of energy that they produce. This scenario, it threatens our biodiversity, which means humans or the people who are behind of this producing of energy are more of creating a place wherein they can put into these things or the machines that they need. The seas are being used or being stayed by the ships to travel some chemicals that they need for this production of energy. Some forestry are being flattened again for the use of this construction. They will use a wide place for their storage area. They need more spaces or they will import products that they make. It threatens also because some forests or trees are being cut down so that these windmills are built on it. The solar panels that they need to plant in these certain areas for they to have a direct contact with the sun, and this radiation will give or provide for the same energy. The last scenario that threatens our biodiversity is the fossils for fuels, which means they are burning these fossils in order to produce an energy which contributes to the warming of our ecosystem. We all know that fossil fuels are commonly used as an energy source for the industrial processes. This somehow uses the oil, coal, and the natural gas. We all know that these fossils are obtained or produced from the underground deposits, such as the remains of the body of humans, plants, the woods, and other organisms that contribute the chemical byproducts of these fossil fuels. The combustion are released into the atmosphere and contributes to the worldwide air pollution. We all know that air pollution is very harmful for us in such a way that this air travels anywhere, and so the pollutants will bring to every part of the earth. This warming or this air pollution will bring to the acid precipitation, or what we all know as acid rain. This acid precipitation is not that healthy because these are the mixture of sulfur and nitrogen oxides, which with the atmospheric water will produce nitric acids. When this acid rain or acid precipitation happens, it will fall to every part of a certain place, like seas, water, soil. This species might not breathe well, it might harm their system, and it will kill them at the same time. This burning of fossil fuels have also been linked to the phenomenon known as the global warming. We are aware that global warming is really happening nowadays, such as changes produces every day, melting of ice, the higher range of waters, the floods, the typhoons, and any other happenings. These are some cases that global warming is really in there. This burning of fossil fuels is very harmful to the atmosphere because the heat it produces will prevent the production of healthy chemicals. So we all know that the importance of biodiversity. Biodiversity is extremely important in the health of our ecosystem. Biodiversity allows us to live healthy and to have happy lives. It provides us with an array of foods, materials, and contributes for our economy. Biodiversity allows for ecosystem to adjust to any disturbances like extreme fires and floods. Loss in biodiversity may limit the discovery of potential treatments for many diseases and health problems. Thus, it is a need to have a healthy society. Having a healthy society means the people must be educated and aware of what was happening in our surroundings. In order to take our part, we must take actions to help and save our nature. We must come together and create a step in recovering our ecosystem. Biodiversity supports our economy, the people, the organisms that enhances our well-being, and so we need to give back. Giving back means we need to preserve what we have still now, and so we can save for our future and for the future generations to come. Now I want you to answer these questions. Number 1, what is biodiversity? Number 2, what do you mean of a healthy society? Number 3, why does biodiversity helps us humans? Number 4, what threatens our biodiversity? Give one scenario and explain. Number 5, as a learner or as a student of today, how do you value our biodiversity? For our third part, we will have your application. So what are you going to do? Based on the videos and the discussion being presented, group yourselves into 5. Form or come up with a collage of the impact of biodiversity on various aspects of human life. Then each group will post on the wall the collage that they make, and they are to pick one member to explain what was the collage was all about. And lastly, each group will fill up the given matrix based on their discussion. For the last part of our discussion, you will have your assessment. Now you are going to answer the following. Number 1, what most important thing did I realize about biodiversity? Number 2, do you agree that our environment is contaminated? Take a position and defend it. Number 3, the last number, how can we protect our environment? Give your own explanation as how you can help as a learner. So that ends our discussion for today. Thank you for your time, class. If you have questions or clarifications, just comment it down below, or you can just message me on my Facebook account.